Greetings. This is the one you've known as Jesus the Christ. You're all on a spiritual path. There comes a point in your evolution when you step on this path. It may be that you occasionally step off it too, but once you're on the path, you're on the path, and you'll continue to be moved forward on this path. When you're called to step on the path is not up to you. So much about the spiritual path is not up to you. And yet your will and cooperation, your intention, while on this path is very, very important, because you can always choose to not be on the path, to go against it. You're always allowed that freedom. Your free will is truly free, and it's respected. Sometimes you feel lost and stuck. Often that has nothing to do with anything you're doing or not doing. Lost or stuck is a story you tell when you believe you're not progressing as fast as you think you should be. But the truth is that you're not so much in control of your progress. You are responsible for cooperating with what's unfolding within you, but this unfolding is not something you're responsible for. This unfolding is just happening in its own time and in its own way, and it has its own wisdom about the way and the timing, which you are not privy to. You're not privy to what's going on deep and subtle levels in your spiritual growth. That is as it's meant to be. There is only so much you can know and understand about the mysterious process of spiritual unfoldment. One of the lessons along the way is to accept that you don't know what's going on and to not tell stories about it, particularly ones that would make you suffer. So you give yourself over to this unfolding, this plan. You do this by understanding how vast the powers are that are ruling your life and caring for you. These powers are wise, mysterious, and so vast that you cannot understand them with your mind or manipulate them with your will. You can go against them, but you don't determine the actual unfolding of your divine plan. As you progress spiritually, a humble attitude is always important. You see more and more that you're not in control of what you call my life, that in fact there is no such thing as my life, but just life living itself through you, expressing through you, and mysteriously creating through you the very life that you're living. The ego pretends that it's creating life, that it's making life happen. But the ego is only a co-creator, and it doesn't have the final say about what is created. And too often, the ego interferes with what's trying to be created through you. So this false sense of I is not really helpful. It's best that it gets out of the way. And so the teachings about the false self are important. It's important that you see that you are not doing your life and that you do not even have a life, that life has you. This is good news because life is trustworthy, and when it has you and you allow it to have you fully, you'll have the life that life intends for you, and that will be a good and fulfilling life, one that will make you happy. There comes a time when the will to awaken arises within you. The will that announces your readiness to awaken is implanted in you. It's a gift that precedes awakening. This will is not from the ego, but from the deeper self. This will cannot be generated by the ego, but it can be co-opted by the ego and assumed to be your own will that's causing your unfoldment. The will to awaken drives the process of spiritual unfoldment and is behind the will to do the various things that support spiritual awakening, such as practices and living a lifestyle that supports awakening. This will is the divine self awakening in you and beginning to take steps in expressing itself in the world. When the divine self begins to awaken within you, you feel it. You feel a pull, an attraction to spiritual teachings and to meditation, and coming together with others who feel a similar pull. This will is a gift and a natural part of the spiritual path. This will is only a problem when it's not honored, when it's not listened to, because when the divine self awakens within someone, it demands a certain amount of attention. If you don't give it your attention, it will call to you louder or arrange circumstances to get you to notice the call. Sometimes these circumstances are difficult. Sometimes they destroy your comfort and sense of identity. When that happens, you wake up out of your usual state and say, "What's going on? What do I need to do? Who am I?" These kinds of wake-up calls can happen at any point along the path, since it's easy for people to fall back into creating structures designed by the ego, until there's more and more of a listening to the divine self within them. As you progress on the spiritual path, you're more likely to create structures, work structures, and relationships that support this divine calling. At that point, your evolution is likely to speed up as you create a lifestyle in keeping with what the divine wants for you. Always, the will needs to be aligned with the heart, not the egoic mind, which will likely create very different structures than the heart. Awakening often demands a new life structures. You have to be willing to create those structures, to go along with the divine plan. Your willingness is crucial. The willingness to see that there's something else guiding your life besides the mind, and that it's taking you where you want to go. Your willingness and intention to go in that direction is your greatest power in the unfoldment of your spiritual path. That is your main task, to have a willingness and intention to go in that direction rather than in the direction of least resistance, of your default, of what the egoic mind would have you do and how it would have you live. Now, when people hear this, they sometimes think, "Oh no, this means I won't have the money, comfort, or support that I want and need for my life." And that's what the egoic mind would tell you. If you go in the direction of the divine, it will tell you, you won't be supported, you'll be shunned by people, you won't survive. That's what it will tell you, when in fact the opposite is true. So your willingness to go in the direction of your heart, of your divine calling, of what feels right inside you in the very depths of your soul, is extremely important. If you aren't willing to go in that direction, you won't discover the benefits and truth of that direction. You have to be willing to take steps in that direction to discover the truth about that direction. The truth is good news, but how can you know that if you don't trust your heart and aren't willing to see what happens when you do? As I've said before, it takes great courage and strength to go in the direction of divine will, because you're faced with the unknown. When you follow your egoic mind, it tells you what's going to happen. It pretends to know, and that pretense of knowing is comforting. It's often more comfortable to follow the egoic mind than the heart, because it tells you, if you do this, then this will happen. As long as you believe that, there's a certain comfort in that, a certain sense of safety and security. However, if you believe your egoic mind, you aren't facing the truth about life, which is that you can't know what's going to happen. When you follow divine will, you won't know where it's taking you, because to be aligned with divine will, you have to be aligned with the truth, which is that you don't know where you're going and what's going to happen. You have to be willing to give up the pretenses and lies of the egoic mind, which give you a false sense of security, in order to drop into the truth, which is a place of the unknown. The unknown is scary to the ego. It doesn't want to experience the unknown. But you have to be willing to live in the place of the truth, which is a place of knowing that you can't know. Are you willing to live in a place of knowing that you can't know what's going to happen in the next moment? And yet you don't need to know. It's perfectly safe not to know. That's what you discover when you stay long enough in this place of not knowing. You have to be willing to go on the ride that the divine is taking you on. You have to be willing to say yes to going somewhere you've never gone before. But then, that's always been the case. You've never really known where you were going. You just pretended. When you're aligned with the truth, you can relax and know that the truth will take you to your greatest potential, your happiest fulfillment, your best self. It couldn't do otherwise. Life is good, and by definition, it has to take you to a place of goodness, happiness, truth, safety, and security. Life will naturally take you where you want to go, but you have to trust life. You have to trust life without knowing for sure where life is going. Yes, your will and intention are very important on the spiritual path, and yet even these are not up to you. Whether you're willing to make an intention, this willingness is not up to you. It is a gift that's given to you at a particular time in your evolution, when it's right for the divine self to awaken within you. And so if you have this will and intention, that's a very good sign. Be grateful for this gift and continue to align with this will and intention. That is your only job, and life will do the rest. It will unfold your spiritual path. It will progress you spiritually. It's already happening. Notice what's already happening. Delight in it. Know that it's trustworthy, and simply say yes to it. That is all we're asking of you today, to simply say yes to the divine energy that is a gift to you, which we will shower on you today. Say yes to it because it's part of your spiritual unfolding. You must already have the willingness and intention, or you wouldn't be here. So make a more conscious intention to receive everything you need to progress on your spiritual path, and it will be given today and always. Feel free to call upon us for help. We are there for you, but you must ask. Ask for our help and healing, and be open to receiving whatever you need. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your openness. We are with you always.